The Minnesota Wild come up a little short against the Carolina Hurricanes, a game they were in to the end, but a good lesson to be learned going forward. We will discuss the top line being held in check by Pyotr Kochetkov. We'll take a look at lines 2, 3, and 4 and try to figure out what works best, as we've got some help in tonight's Locked On Wild postcast. Let's get things rolling.
You are Locked On Wild Postcast, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
The Minnesota Wild fall by a score of 3-2 to the Carolina Hurricanes here tonight. And unfortunately for the Wild, they now fall 6 points behind the Nashville Predators and 8 points behind the Los Angeles Kings. Tonight's Locked On Wild postcast is officially underway, and Isaac is joining us here tonight, who runs the All Things Wild Instagram and Twitter accounts, giving us a little help breaking this one down. Isaac, welcome in, and first off, let's just get your thoughts on this game. What'd you think of tonight's matchup between the Wild and the Hurricanes?
Yeah, I thought it was encouraging. Get off to a good start. Connor Dewar gets the goal, which is something we've been needing to see, is other lines than just Kirill, Ek, or Boldy contribute, even though it's been great to see them contribute. So was encouraged to see him get a goal, the fourth line contribute. Hartman gets a couple of points. Even Jonas Brodin, he continues to jump up in the play, which I absolutely love. I want him to continue to do more of it. Kind of a quiet night for the top line, but you know, they can't do it all every night. But you know, it was good to see that fourth line get some opportunities to produce. But yeah, and I also thought it was interesting, and I'm sure we'll talk about it. They put Marco Rossi on that third line, and they put Freddie Gaudreau back up there, and it looks like in the third period they switched it back. So it'll be interesting to see if they continue to keep that line the same.
Yeah, folks, do you want some stats in regards to Marcus Johansson and Freddie Gaudreau? I know you do. So I've got him here courtesy of our friend Brett Marshall, because when I saw the line combinations, I was all set to do a pregame preview here tonight, and I saw those line combinations, especially line 2, and it stopped me completely in my tracks. I was like, okay, I need a minute to get myself back in a good frame of mind. Brett Marshall bringing some heat. Yeah, everybody's saying no, they don't want to hear these, but I got to deliver. I just got to okay, here we go. Freddie Gaudreau's last 5 games, according to Natural Stat Trick: 68 minutes, 16 seconds in all situations of time on ice. 1 secondary assist, 6 shots on goal, a -8 attempt differential, which equates out to a 46.2 Corsi for percentage, a -13 in shots on goal differential, a -1 in the rating department, +2 in high danger differential, a 48.4 expected goal share, and 4 penalty kill goals against. As Brett says, if that's enough to be considered playing well, Minnesota Wild are in trouble. It's better than Hartman, but that bar is practically on the floor. It's nowhere near as effective as Rossi. Ryan Hartman in the same stretch: 84 minutes, 28 seconds of time on ice, 3 assists, 9 shots on goal, a -23 in the attempt department, which is a 44% Corsi for percentage. And again, Corsi for is those events that happen on the ice. If you're above 50%, that's good. If you're below, it's not. -13 in the shots on goal differential, +1 in the rating department, -6 high danger differential, and a 39% expected goals share. and then Rossi. And then we'll get back into the game because I don't have a lot. I really don't have a lot to nitpick from this game. It was an entertaining game between both teams. Just came down to a couple things here and there that the Wild just were not able to capitalize on. But listen to this for Rossi. 63 minutes, 31 seconds, all situations, time on ice. 3 goals, 1 assist, 12 shots on goal, +3 in the attempt differential, -5 in the shots on goal differential, -1 in rating, +4 in high danger differential, 59.8% expected goal share, which is second best on the team. No penalty kill time. And folks, and Isaac, as you mentioned, as you alluded to, which was right on the money, we saw those combinations to start with Gaudreau and Johansson on the same line as Matt Zuccarello. We did not see them to end the game. And I don't fault, I'm not going to fault things being tried because we just have to try to figure out what these combinations are. But I think, Isaac, one of the bigger issues for this team is we just don't at this point know who's going to be here at the deadline. There just are too many bodies to put in these spots. And so until 1 or 2 players get moved, we're just going to continue to see this because it's a bunch of pieces that just don't seem to really fit well together outside of that top line.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing about the deadline though is who do you move? Because everybody has no move clauses.
Yeah.
I think doesn't Freddie Gaudreau have one? And
yep.
Johansson, I think, has one. I know Hartman has one. I know Foligno has one. Really the only guys that, you can move is Connor Dewar, a Brandon Duhaime, and Pat Maroon, and maybe a Zach Bogosian.
Yeah.
But those are all the guys I'd like to see this team, especially Dewar and Duhaime. I'd like to see the Wild re-sign those guys. And I know I saw a tweet from Frank Saravelli yesterday about that the Vancouver Canucks might be interested in Brandon Duhaime at the trade deadline. So that will be interesting to see if he gets moved. I hope not because I like him, but yeah, we'll have to see. But yeah, even you want to maybe try to free up some spots because maybe Marat Huznadinov, gets signed. I know I've seen Michael Rousseau and others allude to that his KHL season is over. So, he might have an opportunity. So yeah, a lot of, interesting things I could see happening from, here to the trade deadline.
And the other part of this too, that we're not putting enough weight on is this is a double whammy situation because in tonight's case, Connor Dewar scores a goal. Brandon Duhaime looked good in his time on the ice. So if you're shopping those guys before the deadline to try to free up some space, you might be pulling players off your roster that are playing the best out of this group. This is kind of a mess that this team has to figure out. And in tonight's game, you see Carolina throwing as much attention as they can on Kaprizov-Boldy and Eriksson Ek. I thought those guys still played really well. They just weren't able to get on the score sheet. This is something that this Wild team's going to have to get figured out pretty quickly is find a combination that works that can help you out in the goals department, because anytime those top 3 guys aren't getting on the score sheet, it's tricky. It's tricky. And it, again, this game came down to a couple of things, that stupid bounce on that goal that hit off the Hurricane player's face and got past Filip Gustavsson for the go-ahead power play goal. I just inexplicably bad luck. And then you've got the other goal off of Filip Gustafsson's pads between his legs and in. 1 or 2 bounces, other than that, the Wild were definitely in this game. So this is a situation where the climb is a little more tough, but I don't come out of this like waving the white flag or anything. If anything, it just was a good opportunity to see some things that need to be tweaked when the games do really matter.
Yeah, and I thought Gus played really well. I mean, he made that big glove save early in the game. I thought he was seeing the puck well. I think, that game that he played against Vancouver was just awful. So to see him, I thought he played well in Edmonton too. So to see him kind of come back and have these games, I mean, if this team is really going to make the playoffs, and it's a big if, but, they're going to need both Gus and Fleury to, be able to play well. And, they're not going to be able to, afford getting, bad goaltending. I mean, they need to at least get average goaltending to even have a shot. And yeah, I thought Gus was really good tonight.
Yeah, he was, of the games, and he's had a lot recently in which he's given up 3 goals. I put this one lesser down on the list because, again, like right off the dude's face and just into the part of the net that wasn't as occupied. That's just an incredibly frustrating series of events that led to the go-ahead goal. So at the end of the day, the big thing to take away from this is that it now drops the Wild 6 points back in the wild card chase as of right now, and 8 points behind the Los Angeles Kings. Big games coming up, and so there's a lot to get to in this one. We want to get to everybody's comments as well. And so if you've got Marcus Johansson related questions, if you've got game related questions, if you've got Freddie Gaudreau related questions, lay them on the line them up, and we will motor through as we continue tonight's Locked on Wild postcast. Minnesota Wild fall by a score of 3-2 here tonight. We are just getting started. We'll sneak in a quick break, and we will continue tonight's Locked on Wild postcast after this. Tonight's Locked on Wild postcast is brought to you by Sleeper. Folks, we are down to the final couple of months of the season, playoff pushes for so many teams, and you can take advantage and win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked on NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick whether elite players like Connor McDavid, Alex Ovechkin, Sidney Crosby, or Nathan McKinnon will record more or less than their Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus minus, and more in a given game. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Tonight's Locked on Wild postcast also brought to you by Camino Consulting. You've heard of our online families and couples course and taken advantage of the Locked On 25% discount running to the end of the month. But what about the live seminars? In both sports and business, the challenge in differentiating candidates and recruits is an endless battle. Everyone can demonstrate their measurables and qualifications, but we all know it is the intangibles that matter when those things are similar. Contact Camino Consulting for their team and management seminars to get a peek behind the curtain and watch your next recruiting class or hiring group become one of the most effective you've ever seen. Both because you identified the right candidates and because you learned how to communicate and motivate them in accordance with their own preferences. But you aren't in business or management or working with a team. We pay referrals. Make some money making your workplace and favorite teams better. Every group works together better at the end of year one than week one. So contact Camino Consulting at CaminoConsulting.ca and get on the fast track to understanding. That's CaminoConsulting.ca, CaminoConsulting.ca. Welcome back to tonight's Locked On Wild postcast. Minnesota Wild fall by a score of 3-2 to the Carolina Hurricanes. We are breaking down the action here. Seth Topol joined by Isaac, who runs the All Things Wild Twitter and Instagram accounts, right?
Just Instagram.
Just Instagram. Okay. I've got another one that has essentially the same name that follows me on Twitter. So I was curious as to if those were the same thing.
I do have an All Things Wild Twitter. I just don't like, I always think about like maybe posting, but updates throughout the game, but I normally just do that through Instagram. But I do have an All Things Wild Twitter. I just don't post on it. But yeah, I do follow you on with that account too.
Appreciate it. Isaac, let's talk about the big one here. As I kind of roll through the comments, there is a lot of questions about this second line. So let's just start as we kind of turn our attention to what do we do going forward with this game. Let's construct the second line, because I think we got a couple of pieces that are going to be there regardless. Matt Zuccarello, you're not going to drop him further than second line. So Matt Zuccarello is there. I'd love to see Marco Rossi get back to the second line. And beyond that, I'm gonna throw it out there, because he at least does what feels like needs to be the requisite for that other person on that line. Go Hartman. Hartman's a shooter, and he can be physical defensively too, so he can win those battles if you need that to be part of what's going on that line. At this point, that's about the only thing that I can figure that would maybe work. What do you think about that potential combination?
Yeah, I want to see Hartman back there, and I want to see Rossi back in the middle with Zuccarello. I mean, I don't get what you're getting right now from Marcus Johansson to like be on that second line. I know Alex Micheletti always talks about that. It's like he's the cardio minutes. Like he's out there skating. I thought he had one good where he drove to the net tonight and, created himself a scoring chance. But yeah, I want a guy on that second line who's going to shoot the puck. And, I think Hartman shoots the puck. And so, yeah, I would like to see it be Hartman, Rossi at center, and then Zuccarello.
Marcus Johansson and Freddie Gaudreau. Why does this keep playing the ESPN ads? I could have sworn that I had those things muted and paused and do not ever play again. Marcus Johansson tonight and Freddie Gaudreau had the same number of shots as they had hits. Freddie Gaudreau had one shot. Marcus Johansson had one hit. Freddie also had one block. But you're talking about between the two of them collectively, 18, you're basically 19 minutes between the two of them. And you get one shot on goal. And the other part of it too, Freddie did win 5 of 9 in the faceoff circle. That has been basically about his only contribution this season. And, he's getting time on the penalty kill. But I just don't get it. Like, I don't understand. We continue to hear that guys are skating well, but guess what? Connor Dewar skating well. He scored. Brandon Duhaime had an assist. He had a shot on goal. He had 2 blocks. He had 2 hits. He's skating well. Marco Rossi, he's skating well. Kirill Kaprizov is skating fantastically. He had 6 shots. He had a block. He had 2 hits. Xcel Energy Center is skating really well. He had 4. Like, I don't get it. Like, it's, and this is, I've seen this in the comments. Let me see if somebody mentioned this tonight that I can put on the screen, because I'm starting to move into this category myself is that I'm starting to think that there is maybe another voice that is making some of these lineup decisions that is a little higher up the food chain than the head coach. And of course now I can't, oh, here we go. Where'd it go then? Oh, there it is. It starts with management. Hines is probably the puppet in this case, so we can't really blame him, even though he puts the lines together. But we can all make suggestions. But the issue will remain that Wild leadership refused to sit Freddie Gaudreau or Marcus Johansson. I'd like to throw out another theory. I'm thinking that we kind of overrated how hard it would be to replicate what Johansson and Gaudreau bring to the table. Is that accurate, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, they both had Gaudreau had a career year last year. And then he got that 5-year deal. And then I mean, you're kind of banking on guys that, had, a good 1 year to do it again. And for those two, they haven't, had that same type of season. And, Gaudreau's minutes ever since, well, now he got put back in the top 6, but it looked like he was playing less ever since Hines came back. And, we knew Dean loved to play him, which I will say, if Dean gets a coaching job, like in the summer, do you think Guerin is going to call up whatever team that is and say, hey, Freddie, you want to go play for Dean again? Because, I mean, I feel like he would be okay with that. Freddie, that is.
I think he would. I think two things on this front. I think the Wilds probably I'm just going to say panic. I think they panicked a little bit prematurely that they wouldn't be able to find somebody to be able to fill a bottom 6 defensive center position. And so they opted to try to lock in a guy who was doing okay at that role. But as you said, Isaac, he was Dean's guy. Like, Dean played Freddie a ton in like every situation that exists. John Hines' guy is Xcel Energy Center, as it should be. And I think the Wild panicked in regards to filling a top 6 wing position that Marcus Johansson is currently filling. I think they figured that they would not be able to do better than what they had with those two guys, when in reality, I think they would have been able to do just fine had they simply let that play out. If Freddie Gaudreau gets a big offer from somebody else to go somewhere else, that's the price of doing business. If Marcus Johansson gets a deal from somebody else to go somewhere else, that's the price of doing business. I would have zero issues. And I honestly, it probably still is like the extension that I worry about the second least. I would have zero issues with Ryan Hartman being a 3rd-line center or a 4th-line center. I think he's perfectly suited for that. But the fact that we decided to give Freddie Gaudreau a deal to do that, I think is a problem. It's a big problem, I think, for this team. Not just this year, but going forward.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, you need those guys to be more than just like having good skating. Mm-hmm. Like, they need to especially Johansson. Like, if he's going to play in the top 6, like, he needs to be like, it needs to be more than just, skating, good zone entries. Because, I mean, I don't know. I don't see why, we can't try Hartman there. Like, I just at least try it.
Isn't it funny how we still continue to ask these questions and we're basically 60 games into the season? Like, this stuff is, some of these things were issues day one, and some of these things are still issues game 60 of the season. It is truly amazing that we have gotten to this point. And I'm seeing some comments, like I want to highlight this one from Jeremy McDude. I'd rather have Hartman at defensive center because at least he can score and shoot sometimes. That's this is the good point about Hartman too, is we know he can bring the defensive side of the puck. We've seen him be able to score goals. And he's like, again, he's got, I think, what is his number this year? He's got 15 goals this season. So it's not like Ryan Hartman is not contributing. I know we get frustrated by, I swear on my life, I am going to burn ESPN's website to the ground if one of those ads starts playing again. Because YouTube is not going to take too kindly to that. Anyway, Ryan Hartman's got 15 goals this season, and I know we get frustrated by the penalties at points because they do stack up, but at least with him, he's a shooter, he can give you defense, and he can win you some faceoffs at the center position. Like, Freddie Gaudreau's just been all over the place, and Marcus Johansson's just out there skating. It's frustrating. I'm frustrated, but here we are. Isaac, let's talk about this. Mason Shaw, who is currently with the team, but is stretching his legs in the press box. What do we think about Mason Shaw? If you had to pick somebody to take out of the lineup for Mason Shaw for Thursday's game against Nashville, who are you pulling out?
Freddie Gaudreau.
I think so too.
Yeah. Like,
it's just Johansson, at least if you put him further down in the lineup, you can use that speed that he has to kind of you can work that with things, I guess. And maybe he would get the message if he got dropped in the lineup.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, Hines was asked about, like, Mason Shaw, like, he could be playing in Iowa right now. And yeah, like you said, he's just in the press box, and, like, he just came off that ACL tear. And so, like, you worry about him getting rusty. And so, yeah, it will be interesting. I mean, you got to think he's going to get in the lineup soon. I mean, the guy's a beast. Like, he just, 4 ACL tears, and he keeps coming back every single time. I mean, you know what you're going to get from Mason Shaw. You're going to get a guy who's going to play hard. He's going to block a ton of shots. So yeah, I wouldn't mind to see him get in the lineup.
Well, yeah, it is frustrating. And I keep trying to keep this in mind myself. Tony Big Ticket KG is right, because this is the thing about this too. At some points, the lineup changes do happen, but like we talk about this on like a nightly basis, that such and such player needs to come out of the lineup. Such and such player needs to get, and like the coaches just continue to roll the same things out there. But I want to backtrack as well, because I saw another comment that I liked. I do like now that the issues aren't the defensemen. We have come a long way, folks, to where we no longer have to worry majorly about this defense. Like, I think that's credit to the job that Declan Chisholm has done since he has stepped into the lineup. Again, he had 21 minutes tonight. He had an assist, 2 shots. He played on the power play 2 minutes, 50 seconds. There were a handful of times in which He just makes quick decisions, which I like. Isaac, what do you think about what we've seen from Declan Chisholm so far?
Yeah, I mean, when they first claimed him off of waivers, like, to be honest, I didn't know anything about him. So, like, I didn't really think too much about it. But, yeah, he's smooth out there. He skates well. He moves the puck well. I think pairing him with Brodin just is, I mean, going to be great for him just because Brodin is all that too. I mean, he's a smooth skater. And, Faber, I feel like really can play with anybody. Like, I don't think that you got to worry about Brock Faber. So, yeah, I like what we've seen defensively. I mean, even John Merrill has not been a problem. I do think it's interesting because Bogosian is going to come back. So what do we think that third pair is? Do we think it's going to be Chisholm, Bogosian, Chisholm, Mermis? Like, what do we think they're going to do when, Bogosian is ready to come back?
That's a great question. And I'm going to go a little different direction. I'm going to play this twofold because I think there's something that I would like to see them do. I would love to see Chisholm just continue to get second pairing minutes. I think Brodin can cover whatever shortcomings he has defensively to where, like, honestly, I don't think Chisholm is as I'm struggling a little bit to figure out why Winnipeg said that he had issues defensively. Like, he has plays here and there that kind of make you scratch your head a little bit, but by and large, I have actually been shocked at what he has been able to do defensively. Like, I don't see the same things I saw with Kalen Addison, where you got a guy out there that just really doesn't have a grasp of what needs to happen defensively. And so I think it's perfectly fine to keep him with Brodin. I think then you can allow Brodin to roam a little more. Chisholm can definitely step up and help the play. I would go Bogosian and either Mermis, or honestly, I would say Mermis or Merrill as the third pairing with Bogosian, because Bogosian is physical. He can step up in the play offensively. I kind of like the combination of him and Mermis, what they've been able to do. But I just would love to see Chisholm continue to get second pairing minutes and just continue to just develop as a young player. Like, I'm all for that.
Yeah,
and I think honestly
that
makes
Chisholm
this defense better.
Is a liability out there. I think he's been great.
He's confident. That's a big thing too.
Yeah, I mean, he has moments where like tonight where he had the whole blue line to clear that puck and like he hit off of Boldy and then they come down and they score. Like, that was kind of frustrating, but yeah, I mean, he's going to make mistakes. Like, he's a young defenseman, but at least, he can skate. Like, he's not going to make mistakes because he's slow, and that's what I like.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think honestly, like, I just honestly, I can't point to anything, as try as I may. I can't point to anything from Merrill over these last few games. Like, even in the game against Seattle, he like went right up to somebody and was going to try to fight him. I'm like, oh, okay, go off, Johnny vibes. So I don't know. Like, and somebody pointed out on Twitter that he may just not be a great fit for this Minnesota Wild defense, because the Wild love to have those active defensemen that step up in the play. They can fire shots at the net. Merrill's not really that guy. So that could be part of it. I'm also not willing to discount the fact that because I have been somewhat nicer, that his production has started to, his minutes have started to become more and more quality. So maybe that's it. maybe it just took me lightening up a little bit for him to pick his game up. But no, that's defensively, things have been pretty airtight for the Wild here, but this is regular season. At some point, all of those little weaknesses come home to roost. And so I like using this game as just a little bit of a taste as to what teams are going to try to do to this Wild team in the postseason. Like, you got to find a consistent line combination at line 2 that can help out in the scoring department. And you just have to, I think that's the big thing. Like, at this point, the goaltending has been trending more consistently. Special teams before tonight have been really, really good recently. I think, Isaac, it just comes down to figuring out those line combinations for this Wild team.
And secondary scoring.
Correct.
They need some secondary scoring, because if they're going to make the playoffs, like every team that they play, like if they play Vancouver, like they are going to defend that top line. And, we saw it, against Vegas a couple years ago. Like if you could shut down the Wild's top guys, which was really Kirill Kaprizov at that time, can you beat the Minnesota Wild? And Vegas showed a couple years ago that you can. And so, yeah, you're going to need more than just that top line. You're going to need some guys to, step it up and, get some secondary scoring.
Jeremy asking, has Dakota Mermis been playing well recently? Happy to see him as a staple now in Minnesota. I think he has been picking it up here over the last few games. He went through kind of a lull, but I think that's just because of the amount of games that he has racked up this season. So I think Mermis has been better than Alex Goligoski, who is still in the league, just is relegated to 8th or 9th defenseman for this current Wild team. So he just has been press boxing at Darius. Depending on how things play out, if you move somebody, he may get closer to playing, but I think that ship has mostly sailed. Isaac, beyond that, any other thoughts, any other questions? I'll let you go enjoy the rest of your night, and then I'll kind of wrap up here with some final questions and thoughts. But anything else that you saw from tonight's game that stood out?
I don't know. It was a pretty competitive game. My big question that I have is, like, what are they going to do at the trade deadline? Like, are they going to try and go for this? Like, what are they going to do? My also big question, and this is kind of more for next season, like, are they going to be able to just assume that Jared Spurgeon is going to be just ready to start the season, day one? Are they going to maybe address that at the trade deadline? You never know.
Those are great questions. I'll start with this deadline. I feel almost like this team has to do something, and not necessarily from you gotta bring somebody in. Like, they just need roster clarity as to who's going to play in that bottom 6, who's going to play who's going to be on the third line, who's going to be on the fourth line, second line. Because you've got Pat Maroon and Marcus Foligno who are both out. They're not going to sit when they are healthy. So you got to figure out, and maybe it is just as simple as Jake Lucchini and Vinny Lettieri come out and potentially go down to Iowa. But I think Vinny Lettieri's been playing fine. So that's not necessarily fair to him. He hasn't done anything per se to warrant having his job taken away. It's not going to be Freddie Gaudreau. It's not going to be Marcus Johansson, as much as we would like it to be. Those guys are not coming out of the lineup. And so it's going to have to be a couple of other players. And with the fact that you've got this is just in your bottom 6 alone, like let's just assume Matt Zuccarello, Marco Rossi, and Ryan Hartman. Let's just assume that as your second line. These are all the guys that are vying for 6 spots. You've got Marcus Johansson, Freddie Gaudreau, Marcus Foligno, Pat Maroon, Mason Shaw, Brandon Duhaime, Connor Dewar, Vinny Lettieri, Jake Lucchini. Why do I feel like I'm missing somebody? You've got 9 players playing for 6 spots. And then defensively, you've got 8 guys at this current moment with John Merrill and Alex Goligoski and Dakota Mermis kind of being the last 3. So I just would like to see something done to just kind of give us a sense of, okay, these are going to be the guys we have down the stretch. And then on the Spurgeon front, that's a great question too, because I'm super concerned. I don't think you can just pencil in Jared Spurgeon, considering the difficulty of which these surgeries are going to be. You have to have one done first, then heal up from that one, and then have the second one done. Thankfully, I think Declan Chisholm was acquired kind of for that reason, because the Wild will have his rights next year. If he keeps playing like this, he's going to be here a lot longer than that. And so I think the Chisholm move was made because he was available, and also because, you know, he could be a potential lifeline coming up for next season and beyond. So I knew I was missing somebody. Marat Kuznetsov, another player that could be in the mix for one of those top 6 spots. So you got 10 guys. You got 10 guys for 6 spots. You got to do something to you got to do something to at least whittle the number of candidates down, I feel like, at the least. And it would make sense if you are sending somebody off the roster, it would at that point make sense to bring somebody in. B Lake is all in on the Elias Pettersson's theme. Definitely listened to today's episode, which was a good one.
That would be, what would it take for them to do something like that?
So I think this is interesting, because the Wilds, if they really decided, hey, we have to go get this guy, you could offer Vancouver a pick. You could offer them a young player. You could offer them a prospect. And you would probably also need an NHL player. So here's my Dr. Frankenstein trade proposal for Vancouver. Got to give them a first round pick. You got to give them a prospect of substance. So I will go. I saw Riley Height suggested earlier. I don't know if I want that to be done, but I mean, it's got to be somebody from your top. It's got to be somebody from your top 10 prospects. It's got to be an NHL caliber player. The Wild have several that fit that category. And it's probably got to be another prospect too. In addition to signing him to an 8-year deal for $12 million per, which he's worth. Honestly, if there's even a chance that Vancouver does not sign him long-term, I do this in a heartbeat. He's that good. And he's somebody then that you can build around going forward with this team that can get you, like, Elias Pettersson is somebody that makes you a better team and makes you a more serious playoff contender when your window opens. If there's even a chance that he doesn't sign in Vancouver, I do whatever it takes to get it done.
He's also could play on the second line and could score. So, yeah, I would be I would be all in if they pulled that one off. But I'm sure Vancouver wants to sign him. It's just
they're going to try.
If he wants to stay there, which I mean they're having a good year. I mean I mean, who knows? It will be interesting to see if he ends up signing or if he goes elsewhere.
Just reading a comment from Denny on the episode. The 53% tax rate is probably something that's in play for why Pettersson would leave, but that gets to be that gets to be some of the other stuff. Let's get to David's comment here, and then I think we'll wrap it up for tonight. Do we think that John Hynes is the right guy to take this team in a better direction? Isaac, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I wasn't really expecting them to make a coaching change this year. I mean, Hynes and Dean are kind of similar in the same way that like they both don't have a ton of playoff success. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, I've liked the different things that Hynes has, coming and, done. I like that, we've kind of gone a little bit away from, the grit to, some more speed and skill. So yeah, I mean, we'll see. I've been happy with what Hynes has done, but I do know that there's a lot of people that think the Wild could have done better in finding a head coach. So I think it's just tough when you do that stuff in season. Like you kind of got to find someone really quick. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I like what Hynes has done so far, but yeah, is he the guy for the long-term future? Yeah, I don't know.
I do like that Hynes seems to do more in-game adjusting. Like he may have line combinations that he starts with, but he's very much he is very much in favor of making adjustments as the game goes along. Something that Dean Evason didn't do. And so in that vein, he is an upgrade over Dean. But until we see how he handles the playoffs, that's going to be the real test. And so I know there are nitpicky things that we've seen with the lineups with John Hynes, but like I like a lot of the tweaks that he's made structurally, going from having Freddie Gaudreau be your go-to center to having Joel Eriksson Ek be the guy, finally going to the Kaprizov-Boldy-Eriksson Ek combo, separating Kirill Kaprizov and Matt Zuccarello. He's made a bunch of moves, and I think this team is still trying to find those right combinations. And he's going to keep trying things until they do. And so I'm going to continue to give him the benefit of the doubt here as the season goes along. And we'll see how things go if this team makes the postseason. But their record has been far better with him than it was with Dean. And that's got to count for something too. So I think we're still kind of learning about John Hynes a little bit, to where I can't give a definitive yes or no at this point, but I'm not going to give an answer until we see a little more of what he has to offer.
You know what I think is interesting is that when Guerin hired Hynes at the introductory press conference, he never we don't know what kind of a deal he got. I think it's a multiple year deal, but Guerin wouldn't say what kind of a deal it is, which I mean, I don't really understand why he didn't, but that would be kind of interesting to know. Is it a 1 year? Is it a 2 year, 3 year, 4 year? How long is his deal?
Yeah. Jeremy is throwing out that if he remembers correctly, is a 3-year deal. So I would take that to mean the rest of this season and then 2 years after that. Which it's all going to come down to, do we see the same things happen in the postseason that we saw with Dean? John Hines doesn't strike me as somebody that is going to allow those to happen just by how he handles the game. Like, in game, he's making a bunch of different changes, things that Dean Evason didn't do until it was too late almost. So if the Wild get to the postseason, we'll get a chance to see some of those in-game adjustments and see how they work out. Like, that's what I'm going to say. I'm going to give John Hines the year to just kind of see where things are at before I really cast a vote either way. So, big takeaways from this one. This was a competitive game. It was an entertaining game between these two teams. The Wilds just had a couple of things that didn't go their way. Weird bounce on that third goal for Carolina, and that lines 2 and 3 are still in flux. Maybe the last little bit of the game that Rossi, Zuccarello, and Johansson were able to put together can kind of spark them going forward. But this is a good reminder to this is just a good kind of a tune-up game for the Wilds. Like, hey, couple things that need to get ironed out. I'm glad that this one came before the Nashville and St. Louis games, so that you can build off of it and can go forward. But that is, I think, going to wrap it up here for tonight's Locked On Wild postcast. So, Isaac, again, just let everybody know where they can follow you on social media. Appreciate you hopping in here tonight. Let the people know where they can follow you.
Yeah, all things _wild 400 over on Instagram. I do some collaborating stuff with some other Wild accounts, so I would definitely appreciate the follow as I'm trying to grow that. And thank you, Seth, for the time. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate this. I would definitely do this again. This was fun. And yeah, you keep up the great work. I mean, I started watching Locked On Wild, and to see how far it's grown has been fun. I mean, I think I saw some comments from like Moscow, Russia, which is like absolutely insane that there's Wild fans overseas. So continue to do what you're doing, man. I enjoy watching. I watch every day. So just keep up the good work.
Appreciate you, man. We'll leave you with this one. Gotta let the captain get one in here tonight. Freddie did absolutely nothing for me in today's game. I think that's a consensus that a lot of people have here in this one. But hey, entertaining game, big one for the Wild come Thursday, and the Wild have an opportunity to get some points back against the Predators. That's all you can ask for at this point. Tonight didn't change anything about where they're at in the postseason picture, just a little further back, but we're not waving any white flags or anything. We'll go get them on Thursday. We'll have a new episode for you coming out tomorrow. So again, we appreciate everybody's support. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe if you have not already, so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. You can find all of our content here at Locked On Wild on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms, with new episodes every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.